All right, let's get her going here. Good weekend for everybody, I hope. Nick Kypreos in for Justin Bourne today, our very own Gord Stellick, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jen Rolnick. Next 2 hours, including this one, Leaf Edition hour, live on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus. All right, JB, tending to a family commitment.
Yeah.
Gordo, thanks for coming in, pal. How are you?
I'm good. Now, do you write the names down?
Well, it's
Here
all,
we go.
it's
Yeah.
all part of an in-depth scheduling by our very own Sammy McKee. Sometimes I can't make the
see.
names out because the crayon
Oh, they're all
smudges.
there. Okay. No, I'm serious. Joe Bowen, I did color with him for 4 years. Jim Ralph's done it for 1,000 years. Joe writes your name down. No, he does. Like he
Yeah.
write in ink. Like, so whatever. So I wasn't knocking you. I said, it sounds weird. Sometimes those are the things that when, you're new at doing in and outs.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, but whatever. We weren't broadcasters first. So anyway, good for you. But I see Sammy types it out nice for you.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it wrong half the time. So that's
Oh.
why I said, here we go. It was a contentious issue. The lineup's not always perfect, much to the chagrin of my good friend, Mr. Kypreos over there. But away we go.
Sammy, you're trying your best.
Yeah.
That's all we ever ask out of anybody here on the Real Kipper and Bourne Show.
I tried my best to stay warm today, but I failed. It is freezing in Toronto today. Freezing.
Yeah, it's a good one. On the weekend, I flew down on Friday to catch the Rangers and the Washington Capitals on a
Nice.
rare noon game, but decided to stay Sunday
Mm-hmm.
to hang out a little bit.
Yeah.
Take the wife to
Right.
Georgetown.
Okay.
Really nice. Got a nice 1:45 flight back to Billy Bishop
Perfect.
Airport
Mhm.
that got delayed.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Not
you
so
don't-
perfect. Like how much?
Like wheels were down still at Dulles Airport at 4:30.
Oh,
I've got
goodness.
a live 6:30
Oh, my God, Kipper.
pregame show with Justin Bourne,
Man.
David Amber, and Elliot Friedman, and I'm like sweating bullets. Like, come on, I got a
Jeez.
1:30 flight, 1:45 flight that should land in Toronto at 2:45, 3 o'clock. Plenty of time, right? No.
I mean, that is cutting it a little close.
Is that the most you've been like you don't
In
get
25 years of broadcasting, that's the closest I've ever
Okay,
cut it.
'cause
Like, I
I
really thought I was like done,
Yeah.
not coming in.
Because you carry that show too, so they need you. Like I mean that's even
I was carrying
Yeah.
something, but it was not,
Yeah.
the show. It was in my pants. So now I land and it's 6 o'clock. It's like 6 o'clock, and they're telling me like, slow down, don't come in now. We want you to stay in your Uber, and we'll Zoom you in on our
No.
pregame show.
Oh.
I'm like, are you nuts? Are you nuts? They all wanted me to do our first block out of a Uber.
Well, and seeing the humor of it, letting the audience in, right? Like
I know.
not doing
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
Cable
Anyways, it was like
yeah.
I got in, I got dressed, I shaved in 9 minutes.
And the audience was none the wiser. Got a pretty good game. I think had good numbers last night. I don't but I mean
I
like,
think it was one of those games where I think on a rare Sunday
Yeah.
that people are still in their weekend mode and sat back and relaxed and watched again the Leafs find a way to accumulate points. And sometimes it wasn't as pretty as Saturday night, let's put it that way. But I think Leaf fans left that game happy.
So hold on. Before we move off this
Yeah.
late thing, what time did you actually enter the building?
6:09.
Oh, and on air for 6:30?
30. Yeah, about 6:10.
Wow, that's pretty
6:10.
good. I mean, to be still
Like,
wheels down in
You
another
should have
country.
seen me go through like Billy Bishop, like in a full
Right.
sprint. A full sprint. Like, get out of the way.
now do you have Nexus?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That helped.
Yeah.
It
Plus
helped.
getting out of the way and knocking people probably helped as well.
And I thought I was going to help myself by telling my driver, listen, like 3 words, big fat tip.
yeah. And
And it didn't go over so well. This guy couldn't find the slowest
Oh, my
people
God.
to drive behind. And I'm like, buddy, was I not clear? Like, Come on.
You know what? The Lord is getting you because you called me desperate years ago to go to Sportsnet at 401 in McCowan. We used to be up there.
Yes.
There's your car. And I went out of my way, picked you up, taken the Don Valley Parkway, and all you did was bleep and give me crap about how slow I drove.
This is
That's
true.
all you did.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't want my insurance rates to go up. And you had the best line about the dog.
Yeah, I said, there's a dog pissing on our wheel right now, Gord. If you just can step on it a little bit here.
Well, you should have offered the Uber driver, let me drive. I'll get us there in time. Then you'll get the big fat tip. Anyways.
All right. The Toronto Maple Leafs completed their sweep of the back-to-back on the weekend. 6-4 win over the Bruins, and then 3-2 in overtime. I'll let you take the floor first there, Gordo, in terms of what you saw last night. We'll get into specifics, but we are at a halfway point officially for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
So, halfway point was kind of a point of assessment. So, we do those Toronto Star columns, and I'm kind of pitching at the halfway point. They've won as far as the free agent signings. They've got the best value, even with Stolar still injured. Anyway, that's one. Yeah, you want to get in first place so you get a better playoff matchup. Conceivably, they're in first place. When you get a better playoff matchup, you want home ice advantage. That's what it's for. They've never really had home ice advantage or taken advantage of it. They win 2 games at home. They've been playing really well at home. You mentioned the point. Exciting game Saturday against Boston. Not so much Sunday against Philadelphia, but they win them both. Finding ways to win games. So, that's kind of the overview. Then there's the minutia. And then, hey, you know what? Said I was filling in on the Islander Leaf game, and I kind of said, hey, let's have one kick-ass game. Let's not have a 3-2 win. That was Saturday. You got Matthew Knies with a hat trick. You got Matthews is back, 5 points. Marner's back, 5 plus 5s. Knies is plus 6. So that was kind of one of those fun games every now and then. You want one of those fun games, and ideally, because we always talk about the playoffs, one game each round is that kind of fun style that you win. So that's what I saw. Yeah,
I love just how they're winning in different styles, and you alluded to it there. I think one of the complaints about this Leafs team over this year is that at times it's been boring, but I'm not going to complain about wins because wins are wins. It's hard to get in this league. But Saturday night looks so much different than a lot of these games have looked, and they showed that they can win sort of a shootout. I don't think Joseph Woll was particularly sharp on Saturday night, and they kind of picked him up as he's picked them up in many games. I thought Saturday night was an awesome hockey game, and just there's a lot to take out of it. So,
Which also led to Austin Matthews coming back after a 6-game. He was away for 6 games.
Yeah.
So let's pick up Craig Berube on Austin Matthews returning, and then we'll take it from there.
He was solid. That line was really good, obviously. But overall, I thought he played a pretty good game. Pretty, smart game. I thought he was very smart tonight. Didn't overexert himself. Didn't put himself in tough spots. And, we managed his minutes pretty good, I thought. I used them a little bit more at the end of the game, obviously, but it kind of got to that point.
If I'm correct, I think he played under 20 minutes Saturday night.
17 something, I think,
which is a fairly low number here.
For him. But, Kippy, what was the point of him being vague last week? Like not even saying I could return on the weekend. So when he didn't say that, you remember we talked about that, when he didn't even say there's a date that he could come back. So, I'm going to read positives. Look how well he played. He played really well, and he was back. Or is that just the worry that at any time, whether it was the Gilbert hit in Buffalo, that it could go back again and this situation is not going to correct itself unless, say, surgery or something happens? I don't know. I'm going to park that. But anyway, I was just glad he was back. But it was interesting. You had that kind of that amicable chat, with everybody. I thought he was going to be gone for quite some time. So I was pleasantly surprised.
I'm just not sure if he was well prepared, like if he had a thought process in his mind when he first got approached about returning, if he really was well prepared. Like he kind of left it out there, and I'm not sure if it was.
We had the clip from was it earlier this week? I just grabbed it.
Yeah.
The one where he was talking. Yeah.
Let's play it one more time.
That clip I just put into there, Derek, please.
Do you feel like this is something, Austin, that with the appropriate amount of rest, you will be able to put behind you at some point this season?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope so. That's obviously the goal. It's tricky with these things sometimes. It's a physical sport, it's a contact sport, so, things happen out there sometimes that are out of your control. So just try to manage it as best as I can and that we can and just go from there.
Like, I think he was, like, brutally honest, and those are the first thoughts that came to his mind. But I don't think he really thought about the ramifications of those comments and how open-ended it left people to think, like, what is he trying to say here? That he doesn't believe he'll ever be 100% healthy again for at least the remainder of this season, and we're just going to have to give and take the situation? Or, is he possibly leaving himself an out? So if, in fact, he doesn't look good, he can turn around and say, hey, like I told you, I'm just trying to deal with it, and I don't know if I'm going to feel great again this year. Like, it just kind of left it. And then, lo and behold, he plays both the games on the weekend.
He plays great. He plays great.
I was stunned. Like, when you start seeing the news trickling in of him leading the stretch at practice, and he's practicing in the full, I couldn't believe it. And I guess that just goes back to that clip that we played earlier in the week where he's talking about how he's not sure if he's going to be healthy and you just have to do this and you just have to do that. Like, I don't know. Seeing that he was playing, my first reaction was like, is he trying to prove to everybody that he's healthy enough to play in the Four Nations? That was my first thought. But then he goes out there on Saturday night and he's excellent. I thought it was the best he looked the whole season in terms of speed, physicality, decisiveness. I thought he looked the best he looked all year. So I don't even know what to think. Well, I'm completely lost on it.
I know last year, like I mentioned a few times during the All-Star break, did a couple of fan forums with him, Mitch Marner, Morgan Riley, and William Nylander. And they were fun to do. And one is Steve Keogh, the PR guy, said, if you're taking questions from the crowd, like, Austin doesn't want to be asked anymore about scoring 70 goals, right? Because that's all he was being asked last year. You're going to score whatever goals. And I'm sure he's tired of being asked about this all the time. So maybe he's taught himself, I'm not going to back myself in a corner ever, okay? That's part one. Or the other part, again, we're playing amateur doctor here. Is it just something that, again, kaboom, he's not there for game one of the playoffs or game four or game whatever it may be down the road. So I just thought, when he didn't put, like, we knew Ovechkin was going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's back.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. And Austin Matthews made it seem that must be the best rest he's ever got, Kyper, because he said he needed. So maybe he got like 2 8-hour REM sleeps or something that were off the charts.
Got a new bed or something.
Yeah. We got to go to that sleep specialist that got him back on Saturday.
I do buy into, I think, the internal pressure he feels to be ready to play for the Team USA in this Four Nations. I do. I buy into it. I think there's a ton of pressure on him to be a face of the Team USA.
Yeah. And I mean, the calendar's turned here to January. It's 2025. We're not less, but about a month away here from it starting. You need to prove to everybody in the hockey world that you're ready to go for that. And like, Saturday night was stunning to me how good he looked. So I don't know. Team
USA, before Saturday, you're thinking could be without the last American to win the Hart Trophy, Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
And Quinn Hughes, a viable Norris Trophy candidate, even a Hart Trophy candidate. So all of a sudden you're looking at those possibilities not being there. So, but Kippy, it still comes down to at what point, things have changed, as we know. So whose call is it whether he goes to the First Nations or not? And also, the player at the end of it. Decades ago maybe the team could say, but now with the doctor saying you can play versus the team saying, why don't you rest? Why don't you rest? That would be better for the team thing. And the players say, no, I'm plodding through the regular season. I'm going to do it. And also, is it different because it's the Four Nations versus the Olympics? Like, might there be, like Steve Yzerman in 2002? Like, he really defined his season. He wasn't the same after him. They won Stanley Cups anyway in other years. So I'm just interested. Do you think it's the player's call to play in the Four Nations?
I can't definitively say yes or no on that. I will say this, though. The players today, particularly these superstars, have never had more power ever
and
to make calls on when to play, when not to play, when to see a second or third opinion.
In every sport.
to take, in general, for sure. And I do believe that, particularly with the Four Nations, it doesn't have, of course, the cachet of the Olympics, but maybe from an eternal point of view, this is the players' tournament. This is to create revenue so they can build up their own personal contracts or the salary cap. Like, this is their baby here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's even more pressure on him to be that leader for their tournament compared to a double IHF sanctioned Olympics in many ways. Like, I don't know, did he not tweet something between him and Connor McDavid that
I think
was
it's a McDonald's commercial.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. And of course it is closer to maybe a Four Nations. So all of that kind of comes into play here for a guy that says, okay, I got to get my act going here. Okay, if it doesn't feel great, whatever I'm dealing with, bad back, a wrist, whatever it is, hip, I gotta get back in and just start playing some games again.
So Don Fear, as head of the Players Association, misread the players about how hockey players want to play best on best international hockey. Like, he misread that. He didn't understand his constituents, how significant it was, and he quickly found out. And they were bitterly disappointed when they couldn't go to the Olympics, when COVID reared its ugly head again. So, these guys haven't played since the Young Guns game in 2016. So, we're talking like 8+ years after. So, Sam, I just think they all want to go. And I like that. Yeah. I like that. I just think they all, even though it's not the Olympics, they are gung-ho to go.
I think a lot of this has to do with us being in a Canadian market and a lot of the fans being fans of Canadian hockey and being like, he shouldn't go. And because, he's the best player for a bitter rival, probably has a lot to do with some of the bias as well. But we've talked about a lot of outcomes with Matthews in terms of the LTIR and all the missing the Four Nations and long-term health and all this. But the ideal scenario is that he's just what he looked like on Saturday. Like, you're going to have the best chance to win the Stanley Cup if Austin Matthews just looks like he did. Like, that, to me, as a fan, was incredibly encouraging to see that, because I didn't think he had that kind of stuff in him. Like, I know it wasn't, he only played 17 minutes, but he didn't, would you agree that that's the best he looked?
Maybe there was
I think
one
we
or
got
two
rose-colored
games.
glasses. But it's pretty good, though.
To me,
The rest of the year was not very good.
I know. But it's one game coming off another, 2.5 weeks off.
Yeah. It's like when your son or daughter comes home from university for Christmas, that first day. Then by the time they go back, you're ready.
For me to be
I just went through it.
Super encouraged, to your extent. Like, you got to see a
Fair enough.
bigger sample size here of what he's going to look like in the next week or two.
Totally fair.
And
I thought he took a step back immediately on last night. Like, I didn't think
it wasn't as good Saturday night, but
Sunday
this
night.
is Sunday night.
Yeah.
Sorry, last night. But this is also their fifth, and not Austin's, but the team's fifth back-to-back like weekend consecutively. It's like,
It's crazy.
it's crazy.
Well, they didn't travel, so that's a plus. But also, he played both games, which quite often when you come back from an injury and you have some breathing space in first place, that you take that opportunity not to play. So I thought that was another, as we play amateur doctors assessing his health situation.
Knies?
Matthew Knies on a nice little heater. Gord.
Yeah. Also, some highlight reel goals. Like, man, if you're going to do a hat trick, they all weren't garbage. They all weren't garbage tip-ins. That one goal in particular.
So you got to give Berube a ton of credit here with him, because he went out in the media, called him out, said he needed him to play more reckless, said he wasn't getting enough from him multiple days in a row. He said something about Knies, and then he comes out and responds like this. I mean, he's looked the best in the 3 games and on New Year's Eve where he gets the goal disallowed. And then the last 2 games, he's been the best he's looked all year. So, I mean, give credit to the coach for calling him out.
All right, let's get a thought on Matthew Knies from Craig Berube.
3 goals and 5 points in every game, but can that be a bit of a coming out party?
That was a whole year for me. I thought he was a great player tonight. Just, challenging their D with his speed, direct shooting, I like that he just attacked and shot and wasn't always looking for the other guys. He was playing his game, which was very effective, and the whole line was really good.
So something there that I thought Bourne's brought up a lot and was something we've mentioned is that he said that he was looking for his shot, not deferring. Like I feel when he plays with Matthews and Marner that he really feels like he has to defer to those guys because they're two of the best players in the league. And he mentioned it there that he was decisive. He was shooting the puck. He was making moves to the net. Like that's what they need to see from him. I mean, 5 points plus
just
6.
Dumping and chasing too. And I get it. I've been in scenarios where you just want to appease the coach and do exactly what he says. But there are times when he needs to hold on to the puck or look for different options. And to me, that's just a sign of maturity when he's not racing to get to the front of the net to battle. Sometimes you can get there too early. The puck never gets there. I think his goal last night was a prime example of just feeling the game and the rhythm of it and arriving in front of the net when the time's most opportunistic.
Well, it's funny. Sometimes it is that simple about, go to the net and also shoot the puck. And I know as fans, when you watch your kids play, you're always yelling, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. Now, it's not that easy in the NHL because everyone's trying to block the puck. But I use Morgan Riley. I thought 1 or 2 times against the Islanders, he had a better chance to shoot than whatever. And finally, he gets the goal in overtime, and the D, it contributes with some secondary scoring. But I think, with guys like Matthew Knies and younger players, to your point, Kippy, sometimes make it simple like that. And rather than saying, oh, my God, you got to find a better player to give it to or just dump it in, hey, take a shot every now and then, and then go hard after it. Because he's a guy that will go to the greasy areas. So he's not a perimeter player. And I think, to your point, Sammy, you mentioned the coach kind of saying, yeah, if you don't think it's good enough of late, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not good enough of late.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is just make it easier on yourself to make it better for you.
Yeah, you've mentioned it a million times, Kipper, but it's a lot of pressure on this guy who's played however many NHL games to be playing top line left wing for the Toronto Maple Leafs who are trying to win a cup, and feels like he's starting to really feel it after getting called out. So hopefully that can continue, and he kind of breaks through the wall like he had last year.
So we know that line's going very well. Can the Leafs get 2 lines going hot at the same time? Because it just seems now Tavares, particularly Pacioretty and Willie Nylander have hit a bit of a lull here. They didn't have a good weekend personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, great results for the team, but I mentioned in our pregame show last night, you can't really have one line be plus 16 on the same night that your second line is minus 6.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Obviously, and again, we keep looking, and we know depth in the playoffs is always huge and something that depth scoring has eluded them in the past. But it's been a team, hey, even when you had, Robertson, McMahon, and Domi as a line that were doing the scoring for a couple of games. Then you had Tavares that carried them, for a couple of games. And what I've seen is it's kind of, there have been games where there's been depth scoring. There's been games. There's probably been lots of them. But it seems like almost like a good batting order in baseball, that a different individual gets hot for a couple of games, and then someone else gets hot. And even though their batting average numbers are kind of the same, they're winning games because someone's, again, that old thing, finding ways to winning games. And that's what I've liked this year, that it's been different lines at times that have done it, but they found ways to win games with one line. You want to get more. I mean, Willie Nylander, come on. He's got to get his points. He's up there leading among the top goal scorers still a couple of games ago, and that it's going to come. But yeah, in a perfect world, they have all the tools to get that depth scoring.
I think that's sort of the root of the issue with that line at the moment is just Willie's not playing well right at this very moment. And, we've all had the experience with Willie. We know the ups and downs of it. You don't accept the downs as much when he's making top dollar in the NHL, but I think he's the straw that stirs the drink on that line. He's the puck carrier. He's the guy that's kind of shoot it in the net for them. Like, they need him to be going for that line to be effective, and he's just not. He's not.
For me, and I'll kind of revert back to, like, your 5th back-to-back. I mean, that does not tend well for John Tavares and Pacioretty.
Yeah.
They're not quick, speedy guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they grind. They're along the walls. They're battling in front of the net. But
Pacioretty's hammering guys every night.
And they look to me like they've ran out of a little bit of steam here on the weekend.
Is Willie still tired from the 5-minute shift? Because it seems like that's like,
but they've lacked pace of play for me.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
So,
but when Austin was out, who came up big?
Yeah,
John
no.
Tavares.
No
but
question.
you're right about, and back-to-back, those kind of players comes into play a little bit more, particularly the speed of the game nowadays.
yeah, and Willie has done a nice job of kind of keeping the bad games, far and few, like earlier in his career. But like I can't recall seeing him as bad as I saw him last night.
No,
he battled.
last night was brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal.
It was.
Well, back in the Mike Babcock
Yeah.
era, there was
There were a couple of shifts I thought I couldn't tell whether he was walking his dog or not. I mean,
He doesn't steal the boards. Puck goes. That's one of the ways the puck goes
Yeah.
in. I mean, he hasn't scored now in 7 games. His last goal was December 21st against the Islanders. Like, they just, if you're, like I said earlier, if you're making the top goal scorer money, you kind of got to shoot it in the net a little bit more. But he'll get it back.
okay, so I'll ask you first, Gordon, then you, Sammy. How nervous were you when you saw that first goal go in on Hildebeest last night? The 40-foot wrist shot, far post.
It's it's the curse of everything, whatever level of hockey you play, right? And it's like, okay, the Leafs seem to have their depth goaltending, the best it's been in forever. And we're looking at number 3 and number 4 guys, him and Matt Murray. So yes, that one you go, oh my God, don't tell me what's going to happen. And to their credit, the team helps the goaltender get out of a bit of a jam. But those kind of goals that you've had, see Charlie Lindgren and Washington's had a couple of those.
Yeah.
And again, in one of them, the team helps them get out of jam. But yeah, I got to say, I'm not going to throw names out there, but the old era where the goaltenders weren't as skilled, Sammy, it conjured up memories of eye rolls.
You screaming pull him after that one?
It gave me
Forster's wrist shot?
it gave me Gustafsson vibes. I'll name names. It gave me Jonas Gustafsson vibes on that shot. That's one of the first thing I thought. But
he rebounded well, man. He battled.
I'll give him full
Yes,
credit.
yes.
I couldn't believe how good he looked after that because, he's in a competition here now. Like, I don't know how long they're out with Stolars, but they tried Murray over him, and Murray didn't look particularly good, as we all know. So they brought Hildeby back up, and, he's in a competition to stay in the NHL, and he lets in a stinker first 2 shifts of the game. You think it could hurt him, and he responded well. So I'll give him credit, but, man.
That's another game where teams leave going, we got out goaltend.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Fedotov.
Yeah.
Like, they're giving up at least one bad goal a game. And last night for the Flyers, same thing. Just bad goals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there, a big talk over the weekend because the Browns had a new quarterback, and it was 40 quarterbacks since 1999 for the Cleveland Browns. Since Ron Hextall, how many goalies have the Flyers? The Flyers, they have had such weird goalie luck forever. Like, think about even when they went to the finals in that Mike Richards year.
They had 6 goalies, wasn't it? Or
and
5?
Well, it was Boucher got them in on that last day of the year. Then it was
Leighton was there.
Leighton.
Yeah.
Like, they signed Breeze Galloved all that money. They've let Bobrovsky go, like Czech Manek, Robert Ashe, like all these different guys that have played goalie for them. It's a really weird thing with them. They've never had a goalie.
So it's funny. They had Bernie Perrant was phenomenal. They had Pelle Lindbergh, who died tragically. Then they had Ron Hextall, who was phenomenal. And then their mistake, Sammy and Kippy, everyone assumed Curtis Joseph was going to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And when all those goaltenders were moving around and whatever, they jumped early and got John Van Beesbrook. And then Cujo came to Toronto. So that might have solved their goaltending woes back then. I'm glad Cujo came to Toronto. I think Cujo's glad he came to Toronto as far as things worked out. But you're right. They are sort of renowned for not having that real guy. I mean, Carter Hart.
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for obvious reasons, looked like he could be that guy, but isn't right now.
Yeah, and also keep in mind too,
it's not as bad as the Browns, but still,
we had Keith Jones on about 4 weeks ago.
It was a while. Yeah,
it was a while ago, a month ago.
Yeah,
and he made it abundantly clear on our show. They are selling, and we have no thoughts about thinking about making moves to strengthen us just for the sake of trying to stay in the race.
He's got to tell the team they're not they're rebuilding. the message has not got to the Flyers. Last year, they were in the
Well, that's
playoffs,
what you
70
want,
games.
though.
I don't know. It's great. You kidding
Right?
me? It's great. Like these teams that are supposed to, and then unfortunately, the fans turn on them a bit with their expectations. You're going, no, these guys are doing a very intelligent rebuild.
Do you not remember like the excitement for Mishkov at the beginning of the year and talking about how this guy's going to be the savior? And it's like, I'm watching him last night and going, hey, I think he's got a chance to be a good player, but he's not going to build you a new arena like Eric Lindros did.
No. And the other, do you remember when Jack Hughes was taken first overall by the Devils? And then because they fly right away and they have those rookie, and then it was sold out, whatever the practice facility was, to watch Jack Hughes 3 days after the draft, or I don't know if they sold tickets, but it was full. And you go, he's turned into a really nice player, a star player. But at 18, he wasn't that guy then, nor the next year.
But he could always skate. And
I know.
This guy can't skate.
But
not like that.
Oh no, but he still could be a hell of a player. I'm just saying, I don't gauge it year number one.
Yeah.
There's very few players that are going to build you a new arena. Because you're right, people don't realize Eric Lindros built that arena. Eric Lindros built that arena in Philadelphia. Like at the, they kind of forget that, or people forget that. But yeah, I know it's. Hey, the whole thing about getting too excited about that's when you're losing too much. And we did it back in my era. Too many and Michkov isn't underage, but too many underage players being rushed ahead of their time. And that's why I like Joe Wall, Matthew Knies, and Bobby McMahon, guys that earned their way on the Toronto Maple Leaf team. You didn't rush Easton Cowan. You didn't, others, but that's a way when you're struggling, and that's a mistake too many teams make.
Yeah. It's funny, Mishkov, I don't think Chris Cuthbert called his name until he had the puck in overtime. He was barely involved at all. So, and you guys talked about it a little bit on the broadcast with the way Torts is handling him, and he's trying to kind of help him with the rookie wall and all that stuff. Like, he seems to be doing a good job managing it, but yeah, you're right.
He's not sheltering him either in terms of the perception of this guy just being a great player. He's got a lot to learn away from the puck, and he's going to make him earn it.
So just to close off the Hildeby question before we go to break here. So he looked good enough here to get the next backup start. Like, did you see enough from him where you'd maybe try to sneak one in here in this week? Or is it wall this week?
I haven't really looked at the
schedule.
So
there's
Tuesday and then Thursday?
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, I think Hildeby earned another start for sure.
Yeah.
And you don't underestimate what Matt Murray's body's been through with 2 hip surgeries.
Oh, yeah.
And just to retrain his body, his mind at the American Hockey League, he needs reps. He needs starts. And I don't think they're going to race him back up here.
It's a great story, but he's been playing well in the American Hockey League, but even though he won in Buffalo, he didn't play great up here, but it's just a great story, him being back. And then, Hildeby, like, when you've got first of all, you're in first place, and you're not playing games like you're fighting for a playoff spot every night, where you maybe are a little bit more desperate and maybe would ride the hot goaltender. So I don't know. It is funny, people. We worry too much about the 13th forward, the 7th D, and the third goaltender quite often.
Sure.
Like, you're just hoping Stolarz and Wall are the guys, because the goaltending has, as to your point, Kippy, has dropped off a bit, the effectiveness since Stolarz got hurt. And you hope that they find that again, whether it's both of them, hopefully both of them being healthy, but just in general heading into the playoffs.
To me, I'm going to Hildeby on Thursday night. I'm not doing 3 starts in a week for a while. Anyways, we should take a break and then talk about McCabe.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Plenty more to get into, including the Leafs starting to get a little bit of offense from the blue line.
Yep.
Morgan Riley with the overtime goal last night. McCabe on the weekend against Boston.
Ekman Larson, too.
OEL
with a one-handed poke. Plus, obviously, we're going to get into, as you said, Sammy, the in-depth situation with Jake McCabe. We'll give you guys an update as well, and we'll tell you which Leaf got a little lighter in the wallet last night. That and more when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Nick Kypreos, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jen Rolnick. And in for Justin Bourne, Gord Stellick. The Toronto Maple Leafs will once again be without Jake McCabe. He's out. He was placed on injured reserve after leaving Sunday's game, Gord, with, I don't know what they're calling it, an upper body injury, but we all saw either he got punched or hit his head on the ice. Doesn't appear like we'll see him probably for another 2 weeks, which already kind of goes with the 5 games that he missed after he was hitting the side of the head earlier in the season on an errant shot.
Yeah, well, you're the you've had the history about it being a tough player and dealing with concussions, and it just, again, we're playing amateur doctor, but you saw that look and how wobbly he was, and we all know that from playing sports or watching sports. You made a really good point on the broadcast about, like, that's a tough dude. That's as good a fighter. And that when you're on top, like, I can't fight, but I could lie on top, and that would probably be my best defense, whatever. I mean, in all seriousness, because once he got up, and good on McCabe was sticking up for a teammate and that, but once he got up, he was vulnerable to that, unfortunately. And a couple of years ago, you had Matt Dumba playing really well for Minnesota and felt he had to answer the call against Calgary. I can't remember who it was, but he got involved. He hit somebody. Now, he didn't get a concussion, but he wrecked his shoulder and was out the rest of the season. So I really hope in McCabe's case, everyone starts jumping about, okay, Jake Muzzin, you remember a Leaf defenseman recently that unfortunately these things started to accumulate. Yeah. And, we're optimistic that's not the case here. But there's just a nice core 4 going right now. And that was the one, unfortunate point post-game, and Berube mentioned that.
Yeah, it seemed like Garnet, Hathaway and McCabe had something going throughout the game a little earlier, too.
And just the Leafs PR announced today that he's on IR retroactive to January 5th. So that's, he's on IR for a while. Marshall Rafai has been recalled. But, I think Hathaway kind of had a bee in his bonnet after Benoit hammered him early in the game. He got him pretty good behind the net, and then he got into it with McCabe, like you said. And then, he ran the goal.
So, okay, hold on. I appreciate McCabe's message to Hathaway for that, because I don't want anybody anywhere near my goalie. I get that. But was it that bad? It wasn't. Did he really run the goalie, or was it maybe a typical play that, like, I didn't see it as bad as a guy that is running the goalie. Now, again, I'm okay with the consistent message from McCabe or any other Toronto Maple Leafs that this is going to be different this year. I get all of that, but it wasn't crazy of a contact or collision for me.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, especially, right? I agree with you. And I know we'll talk later about Max Domi, because I looked at that's more last year, that infamous shot on the bench where they appeared to be indifferent to Marchand's hit, right? Which I know they weren't feeling that way, but so that's where it's understood that part's got to be different this year. Even optically, it's got to be different. Yeah. So, I don't know if they were jawing at each other, whatever it may be, but a core 4D and that, you don't need him going after as tough a guy as there is in the NHL.
And if you do, it's okay, but just remember that this is Hathaway, who is one of the tougher guys, can handle himself. He's 6'2", 215. He's not
he's a beast.
He's not a mouse.
No.
So, once and I said this last night, once he got him down, and McCabe gave him a pretty good shot. He drove his head into the ice.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, if you're gonna do that, if you're Jake McCabe and you're gonna do that, then just stay on.
Because you're pissing him off.
Just
you've got him mad.
Let him get up.
He's getting up mad, on top of that, right? In the heat of the moment. And, and that's exactly what happened.
Listen, I would be talking out of both sides of my mouth if I said that it wasn't that bad and he probably shouldn't have done anything, because I've sat on this very chair for 3 seasons and talked about how the Leafs have never done anything in these kind of situations. So I loved that he responded. I love that he's a warrior and he thought that he had to fight one of the toughest guys in the league. And it's a super unfortunate outcome, a brutal one for the Leafs, but I'd be so upset if he did nothing. Like, he took it wasn't that bad, but it's bad enough where he takes an aggressive line and runs into the goalie.
Yeah.
It deserves a response. You just can't let him get up.
Can't let him get up.
Chuck knuckles with one of the toughest guys in the league. Yeah.
Once you recovered from your hasty late flight, arriving late last minute to the studio, you got your wits about you. Yeah. I thought, now the next part, and sorry, I know you're coordinating the flow, But
No, Gord, this is wide open, buddy. You take over.
It's like potpourri for 40. So the next thing is, Max Domi.
Yes.
Okay. And I think Craig Simpson made the point, well, it's not a great penalty to take in the offensive zone. The game's tied. But I also got to say that you can't really maybe necessarily wait for your chance. That the message this year is we can't have that Marchand thing like last year. So he just goes out there and whatever, and just about, hey, it needs a response. And the best time for me to respond now, I got an extra 2. Please kill the penalty off, because when you go back to the Broad Street Bullies era, that's what they did. They killed penalties off.
I know.
Simmer made me laugh so hard. He's like, when you got your stick up in the air like it's a flag
That was a good line.
Give me a good laugh.
I can't disagree that it wasn't a great penalty, right? For sure. But when you sign Max Domi, this is the stuff that you're kind of looking for. And
but
your point,
isn't that more important? Doesn't that trump it being a bad penalty?
Well, I think it just stays consistent that this isn't the Leafs of yesteryears where to Sammy's point, we just get rolled, that someone's going to come back and he's going to get you. Now, Hathaway, if I'm not mistaken, has already got a history with Max Domi. I think they fought when he was with Arizona, and something happened to Max's hand, ended up in surgery for a broken, dislocated thumb or something. So he's already got a burr up his, over
Already
Hathaway.
doesn't like him a whole lot.
Doesn't like him a whole lot. So it'll be real interesting tomorrow night when they go at it again.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a little bit of the cost of business of having a Max Domi in your lineup, is that, he needs to send messages every once in a while.
He's fought him a couple times.
Couple times?
Yeah, he fought him a couple times.
Okay.
Fought him when he was with Montreal too. So
yeah, tomorrow night they might add to that.
Well, this is the big question, and like one of the things that I was getting sent to me a lot and tweeted at me. Reeves. Gotta go tomorrow.
Gotta go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
No questions asked. And that would be my first choice, is like, okay, Garnett.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Say hello to my little friend.
Well, Reeves hasn't fought yet this year, so is his first one going to be, I guess, against Garnett Hathaway?
He's well rested.
Don't think need any other reason.
So you still like if you're Berube and you're going into that dressing room tomorrow and you're starting Ryan Reeves, you're having the conversation with him that, like, no matter what happens in this game, we can't leave it without you fighting Garnett Hathaway.
No. Those conversations don't happen that way, Sammy.
No?
No.
Just doesn't. It's an unspoken thing.
It's an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan Reeves
just know.
And by the way, to get Max Domi, keep in mind another rule. He filled in at center very capably in the playoffs last year. So there's a lot of elements to him. One doesn't seem to be scoring a ton of goals, but there's a lot of elements to him. But I agree. I like that the era of arranged fights isn't there anymore, but that's a given. Tuesday's a given. Whatever it, you knocked one of our top 4D out, regardless of maybe he deserved it by the way he pounded away at you, but that's a reason Ryan Reeves is on the team, and Ryan Reeves knows it.
Yeah. We're right back at it Tuesday night.
So a guy that it kind of popped to me on the Flyers and has been kind of been rumored as a potential trade candidate was Scott Laughton. Thought he looked really good last night. That's a guy to me, that local guy. If the Leafs are looking for a third line center type of guy, that's a guy that I'd love them to look at. Thoughts? $3 million this year next.
Yeah, I think you just got to keep an eye on Austin for between now and the trade deadline, and just they might need a higher upgrade than Laughton for me, Sammy. Okay, and I don't mind him. I think he'll be fine, but like maybe you got to go a little higher. And to me, I want a guy that I can throw in on the second line if I've got to bump John down, right? I don't know at that point, how John's legs are at the end of the year, if he's going to be able to kind of hold his spot as the second line centerman. But I may need a centerman to run 2A, 2B with John.
That's fair.
Yeah, and you mentioned thoughts. I'd also like to see what's out there, right? And also, and that's and obviously that's what Brad Treliving and his staff are doing. And it's just Ryan O'Reilly and Nick Foligno. It's unfortunate in both cases. Injuries were a big part of things not working out here, but we didn't get the results. Didn't happen in Toronto, and they cost you first-round picks. And at some point, you're seeing with players being developed from within that you can't keep trading away first-round picks. And so I still maintain I'd rather have complementary players than trading a first-round pick. So that would enter into what you may get, what may be out there. Again, if Austin Matthews isn't healthy, or heaven forbid Jake McCabe, then you start looking at things differently around the trade deadline. Obviously, you got to go a little bit bigger.
Morgan Riley ends up with the winning goal in overtime. Let's go to Craig Berube on scoring from his back end. Clip 4.
I don't look at it as a concern. I mean, I think we always try to, what can we do better, to score with our D. We're trying to activate them a little bit more, which they've been in the play more on rushes and things like that. And then, in the offensive zone, tonight I thought our D2 did a real good job of activating backdoor. Kyper scored, and we missed 2 other ones. We had some couple good looks there.
There you go. That's from Saturday night.
Any concern over the dry December for you from the Leaf Blue Line?
Well, I don't know what the word is, but I would say if it carried on, yes, just about depth scoring, right? So it's got to come from different places. It tends to be streaky. And, what's like, they don't have a guy like Werenski or whatever. They don't have double-digit goal scorers from back there. I know Morgan Riley was that guy in other years, and a lot of people think he could be that guy from, moving forward. OEL had some positive offensive years. So, again, it came up when they needed it. Would you like more? Of course you'd like more. The better teams have a little bit more. But they got off kind of the schneid the last couple of weeks, scored some big goals.
Yep. You think we'll see more of Morgan Riley jumping up now in the back half of the season?
I'd like to think so. And and again, like I mentioned, I thought he passed up some better shot. Like when I was doing that Islander game and whatever, just I thought of late, maybe it gets in your head about you pass up some what look like decent shot opportunities. I'd like to see him, take more of them. And, you had OEL, the one game, again, against the Islanders. It was kind of a harmless-looking shot. But if you get it through and it goes to the net, good things can happen as well. So, maybe this will be a little bit of a tip of an iceberg.
It feels like they've got a little chemistry between him and Myers. I've liked Myers since I don't know, maybe the last few weeks.
Been out a while now.
Yeah.
But, to me, he had a great start. And I thought the arrow was pointing down, Myers pointing up. I don't think either of them are immune from being in and out of the lineup, but I think I've liked Myers a lot more recently, and he's got a bit of chemistry with Riley. But he'll be back in now that McCabe's going to be out for some time.
So what's the deal with Timmins? Is he
hurt?
hurt?
They've liked Myers a lot, so there's just.
I've liked Connor Timmins.
You have a better than Myers?
Yes.
You'd have Timmins in game 1 in first round?
Yeah, okay, yes.
If he started tomorrow night in the Stanley Cup playoffs, would you have Timmins?
Make a trade and get Quinn Hughes. But anyway, yeah, okay. So speaking of trades, I got to say, okay, so it was the anniversary. Sammy would have been in diapers back then, but you were playing in the NHL, and you were close to winning a Stanley Cup. But, man, you just can't make trades like this anymore. But it was the anniversary in 1992, the 10-player trade between the Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames, and Doug Gilmour and Jamie McCown, like he was a hell of a player too, coming over with Rick Natras, Rick Wamsley, and Ken Manderville went the other way. Anyway, I'll get them straight. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm missing. But the key was going the other way. Gary Lehman, Michel Petit, Alexander Godinuk, Jeff Reese, and
Craig Berube.
They really, and Craig Berube was a big part of the trade. Like Craig Berube, Calgary really valued. He'd come in a big trade. He'd come from Edmonton in the Grant Fuhr trade to Toronto. He'd only played for about 3 months. So Toronto's great run decades ago, in a way, we give some props to Craig Berube because being able to be a piece in that trade, I think Ken Manderville was the other name I missed coming back.
All right, listen, we got to get going here.
Okay.
You know who's coming on?
Gerry Dee.
Gerry Dee, comedian. You're not the only one with the laughs.
No,
right.
well, he gets way more laughs than us.
Live on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Sam McKee, and for Justin Bourne, our very own. He's wonderful. He's talented. Put your hands together for the lovely Gord Stellick.
Well, sounds what I used to get all the time. Just a smattering of applause. A smattering of applause on the. Well, the national side, do the Ottawa Senators, do they want the playoff spot in the East?
Ooh.
And do Vancouver and or Calgary, do you guys want the spot in the West? Like St. Louis and Utah are kind of saying that maybe we're a little more hungry than you.
Plenty to get into in this next hour. In a few minutes, we'll welcome in Gerry Dee, comedian and star of Mr. D, Amazon Prime. And a very, very funny guy. So we're going to keep it a little light here. But you know what? He goes hardcore on his opinions on the National Hockey League, which I absolutely love. So I'm really looking forward to this segment here.
With the brief time you worked at the Score, but I worked a little bit longer. Do you remember him, Gerry Dee, doing comedy bits?
Yes.
He did sports comedy bits. He had some, because really funny ones. And then later, Cabral Richards, Cabby, started there doing Cabby on the Streets and all that. But no, he is a funny guy, and he's a big sports fan.
Well, he's got plenty going on right now, including, I don't know if he started his tour yet, but I think we'll figure out where he is in a few minutes here. But looking forward to that. As far as the temperature in the water in Vancouver regarding Pettersson and JT Miller has really hit a feverish pitch.
Yeah. So you're good buddies with Rick Tocchet, and I really got from that, and obviously Rutherford and Alvin would be on side about, okay, because this has been out there forever, and we're just tired of it, and the 21 other guys are tired of it, and we're tired of it, and I don't know, KP, my read kind of is on it that, hey, in real life, people will have, say marital issues. So each side will talk to friends, right? And they'll try to help them make it work, whatever it may be. We'll talk to friends, and maybe things go well for a while. And then at some point, the friends will go, you guys got to look at separating. I can't, there's nothing else I can do. Like, you guys got to figure it out what may be. And I get the sense.
They've been saying this for a while, though.
Well, but this is
right?
This is public now. When they made it public, it kind of was, they got to figure it out because we got to do better on the ice. And it sounds like, whatever, we've tried everything. Let's see if they can figure it out, and we shall see. But this is new to me. This kind of situation is new to me.
Well, they had Friedge talking on Saturday night about the potential of, he said that there's 3 outcomes, all that stuff, but like both of them.
Yeah.
What were the options?
Well, there was not traded, one of them traded, and both of them traded. So those are the 3 options that Friedge laid out.
Well, there's a fourth one. If UFO lands on Rogers Arena and abducts them both. Did Elliot mention that one?
That outcome was not mentioned.
He left that for you.
But I was surprised to hear Friedge say both. Like both?
Well,
then you're totally changing your entirely what you are.
You really, we can't even, in this world of salary caps and who can take what, do you really see a scenario where it's both?
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of cash going out.
Come on.
That's almost 20 mil.
It's Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract times 2. I mean, that's what LA did, right? And I know he's fit. So the Mike Hoffman, Erik Karlsson situation is the last one I can kind of think about. Whatever happened off the ice, Hoffman went pretty quick. Karlsson then after. They were a team that had been 1 overtime goal away from making it to a Stanley Cup final right around then or a year earlier, right? So to Sammy's point about changing the makeup of a team, this sounds like, one or both could go, as absurd as it seems. They just signed Pettersson last year.
That's
right?
why I don't think he's going anywhere.
Well, I don't either, but I mean, it's like they signed him, and the next day did this crop up? Like, in talking to him or him talking to them about, what may be untenable to a degree in the situation, so it's because right away, it seemed like when he signed his contract last year, his on-ice productivity hurt, and JT Miller, same thing on the ice. So can they figure it out off the ice? But I think they're kind of saying as well, we got to figure it out on the ice because they were entrenched in a playoff spot, and now they are hanging on by the hair of their chinny chin, Kippy.
money that's presented to you. And, regardless of if you want to be there or if you don't want to be there, like, is he 11 and a half? Was it 11 and a half for 8 years that he ended up signing Pettersson? I think regardless if you you'd sign in a lot of places for that much money and you figure it out later, but that contract presented to you, how can you not? I mean, I don't know how you can't take it. Like, even if you don't love where you are, even if you don't love your teammates, if you believe, I don't know. I think that's why that happened. It's a lot of money.
Pettersson came out publicly and said he knows he has to be a lot better, and Alvin certainly, and Rutherford behind the scenes challenging him also, publicly as well. But Gordo, I cannot see them going and trading Pettersson, who's, I believe, 5 years younger. These are 5 years of prime Pettersson.
Yeah, if one of the two were going to go hockey-wise, not knowing the situation, it would be Miller, obviously, you would think. Obviously. And I mean, the fact that Pettersson re-up showed to me that he wanted to stay there. If there were big issues, you don't re-up for 8 years, and then a month later, whatever the extent of this crops up. So I agree with you. I wait and see, about him getting healthy and, what they do on the ice, and do they genuinely fix it off the ice, which is kind of the challenge that the elephant is no longer in the room. And whatever it is, it's up to them. Otherwise, someone moves out of the house.
4 games on tap, including an all-important one between the Vancouver Canucks tonight in Montreal. Prime Amazon game Monday night tonight. Just in terms of now the importance of just not getting the win, but maybe alleviating some of the noise. Would a win do that tonight?
Well, I don't like using the term a must win, but I think it kind of is for Vancouver. And meanwhile, Montreal's playing their best hockey. They're loose, so that makes it more difficult. But yeah, you're nip and tuck for the playoffs. And like I said, St. Louis and Utah have closed the gap. So all of a sudden you lose a few, and you're the New York Rangers of the West. The team that was sitting pretty and are sitting with a really bad view. So I kind of looked at that tonight as a real important game for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Habs have gotten really hot here. And you look at where they're sitting in the Eastern Conference. I mean, the last playoff spot is held right now on points, not points percentage, by the Pittsburgh Penguins at 41 points. The Habs are 39 points. They're right there. And if you had a picture that at the start of the year, that the Red Wings, Rangers, Islanders would all be behind the Habs in the standings, you would never have believed me. It's crazy how far they've come, because they were brutal.
And they got their Kevin Lankin in goal all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Kid from Czech, Dobish, whatever, that played in the USHL and played Ohio State University. And we've had some neat, surprising goaltending stories. It's wonderful when it happens to your particular team.
High in Calgary's right there with Vancouver right now, but they're coming off a couple of losses as well. But
to a tired Nashville team.
How long can kind of Calgary hang in there, and then when do they really focus on moving some assets, and how deep would they consider going here? Because I between Montreal and Calgary, to be in that conversation right now and get your fan base excited. Mm-hmm. You just can't turn around and just like that take them out of a playoff race because of a trade you thought you couldn't refuse, could you? I know Philly would. Yeah, we know Keith Jones would.
Yeah, different case. So it's funny. Last year, Calgary became a seller on the fly. They started the season, and it looked like they were going to keep Hanifin and whatever. Then everything changed, and they got rid of everybody. And I know they said in the summer, look, we're not sellers again because we were sellers last year. But, whether it's Nazem Kadri or other situations, there's talk about guys that provide value that you could get for more assets down. So, Doug Armstrong in St. Louis was a guy, when he traded Stastny to Winnipeg, just said, hey, I don't care that we're only a few points out of the playoffs. I'm not losing a guy for nothing who's going to be UFA. I don't know if Calgary does the same thing. I think they got to be in the hunt and battle.
All right, Sammy, what's going on, buddy? We're ready to go. Let's welcome him in, Gerry Dee, comedian, star of Mr. D on Amazon. Hey, Gerry, there's nothing funny about making us wait for you.
I don't know what happened. I couldn't hear you.
Where are you, Val? What's going on?
In Toronto, yeah, just at home. Nothing special. I wish I was in a fancier place, but I'm not.
So let me ask you something. You know, we know you as this big, huge comedian, star, you know, host of Family Feud. Is it true you would all trade it in to run an NHL team?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, I liked coaching a lot. I don't know. I liked it. I was coaching minor hockey for years, and then crept my way up to Wexford Raiders, which was a tier 2 team at the time. I think they're since gone, but
I was a Wexford guy.
were you?
Yeah, I went to the Pee Wee tournament with Wexford.
Yeah, a great, a long history. And so I did that, and then I was probably 26, 27, and ran a hockey school, and then I started this comedy journey. And I always joke, I saw Billy Bowler, and I met the owners of Windsor and Howie at Barrett. I'm like, you know what? I get on the bench as an assistant. I probably don't know enough to be a head coach, but I'll bring you some great interviews. So maybe one day I'll creep back in. Who knows?
Well, Kippy, we were mentioning Gerry about at the Score where you had those great fun sports comedy bits way back when, and Kippy and I worked there. I also got to say, Alan Leslie Kogel, say hi. We were just over there for dinner, so that's a guy you golfed at,
Best
Don.
guy.
Yeah, that's a good friend growing up. Yeah, and
Alan was a friend in grade 8. What a great guy.
Great.
And Leslie, too, I've only met her recently, but
yeah. Well, anyway, just said to say hi. But the other was, I follow you on Twitter, and Saturday you said it all about where are we getting together for the Sweden-Finland junior hockey semifinal? Where's everyone gathering? And I kind of thought, in breaking everything down, I thought that was kind of a fun comment about it.
yeah, it's probably wasn't fun at at a network level, as you guys know. You're really relying on Canada and in international competition, and the Leafs, Habs, Jets, that whole Canadian sort of 7-teamer. But yeah, it just, to me, it's unfortunate that we rely on that tournament so much in Canada to at least be in the finals. That been a tough couple of years. Yeah, I mean, that game to me was we can talk about refs all we want in hockey, and that was a tough one to understand. But I'm sure there's both sides to the kneeing calls, the missed head smashed into the board call. But again, we're biased, right? So we see.
So where are you, Gerry? Where are you on the two sides of? Yeah, we gotta clean up this program. We got some serious issues, or come on, they're just kids. Where do you sit?
Yeah, they're just kids. I do question the. I don't know enough about it. You too well. I do question the. I don't quote me. Was there one NCAA player, or do we just not have enough NCAA players there? We don't seem to have a lot of NCAA representation at that camp. But again, I don't know enough. I know obviously, Celebrini's there, and any of our other great players that are in the NHL. It's a different tournament, but ideally there's a way that's a true, I was joking after, it's like, if your kids play sports and you win a provincial championship, but the team's missing their 3 best players, you're like, did we really win it? So, I mean, they did, but I feel like it's just, we're better at hockey, so our better players are in the NHL, and it's not a real true World Juniors. It's not an excuse. We should still compete better than we perhaps did, but our 2 of our best players, 3 of our best players, and other teams have it too. I just don't know if they have as many missing.
So, you as a parent, so if I remember correctly, your daughter was an elite golfer, then became an elite volleyball player. So what was it like your mantra about being a parent with extensive coaching experience, but about the natural part, the love of the game, but also giving them enough or helping them get enough instruction to develop? How did you balance all that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I try to teach my kids, my oldest daughter, the golf, she's 7. She doesn't know what it means to get a scholarship, or so, I was always pushing sports to be the best you can be. But I tell them, be the best you can be at anything, right? If you want to play piano, then just, I saw a great Steve Nash speech when he was inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Like, just find something and fall in love with it and be passionate. If it's school, great. If it's music, plays, drama, sports. For me, it was my love of sports and comedy, and I try to pass that on to them. But we see a lot of it. There's the intrinsic love of it has to come from them, but how much of that can come from a 12-year-old? And when my daughter was elite golfer, I remember a really good golf coach, Tristan at Team Canada, said, you don't want to be the best 12-year-old in the world. You want to be the best 18-year-old in the world, right? Like, so to speak. So it's a balance. You gotta, do I motivate them and say, hey, you guys want to do some extra clinics? Yeah. Are they going to look it up online? Some kids do. Some kids will. And all three of my kids are different. I tried to get my son in hockey, and I just thought when I had a boy, I joked, that's why I had a boy, to try to, go to the rinks and stuff. My daughter's passed on hockey pretty quickly. And I'm like, okay, he had no interest. And I realized that, a friend of mine, Dominic Amodio, I don't know if you remember Dominic. Dominic was a great, he played a bit for Team Canada. He played at UNH. He was a great player. He was a Hobie Baker runner-up and, never made it, and smaller guy, but just a phenomenal hockey player. And he calls me up. He said, hey, I hear your son's a 2012, which is the birth year. And we're putting a skate together. And I said, they were 6. I said, well, he skates. He goes, hey, it's okay. They're all just learning. And I went to this skate, and, these kids were toe dragging and roofing it.
Yeah.
My kid, he couldn't raise the puck.
Listen,
So
we're parents right now, and we're sitting back, and we're talking in a calm, collected manner here. But the system out there baits you in so sometimes crazy for parents that you either like get into it and try to keep up with the Joneses or the Stamkoses or the Gretzkys, or you don't. But it is really hard once you're in there and you're watching what other parents or kids are doing, and it's very difficult not to get sucked into that, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. But as you know, Nick, and you've gone through this with your kids, it is true that the best 12-year-old is not often the best 16-year-old, and they can burn out. But at the end of the day, I do believe it's a gift you're born with. And I know that sounds crazy. I think, you went as far as you did, Nick, and had a great career and did what a lot of kids want to do. And you probably just loved playing and played. You probably wasn't summer skates and all this crazy clinics and shooting in your basement every day for 5 hours. You get those kids that make it. But at the end of the day, I think it's you've got it. And if you've got it, you do have to, push your kid or push yourself. And when they're younger, they're not always going to push themselves at 12. But, we live the dream in Canada, right? Like, my son's a really good volleyball player, but I always joke, like, there's no World Junior Boxing Day volleyball tournament we're all glued to. Like, it's just, we just love hockey in this country. So, but it's a certain personality too, right? It wasn't his personality. It's a grittier personality that, I remember playing hockey as a kid, and I just loved hitting and running at guys, and I was small, but some kids, that's not their thing, right? So, you let them find it, and you do get hooked and caught up in it. And if you don't go to the summer skates, well, you're falling behind, and you're like, oh, you're not going to make AAA. And, we see and hear a lot of that. So I've learned on my own, they eventually find their own way, and, we support them. And if they want to play at the next level, whatever sport that is, we're there for them. I encourage it. But if they don't, we just encourage them to fall in love with something.
So my mom always had a great line that if you could instill in your kids a sense of self-confidence and a sense of humor, they will go far. I've always loved that line. And I'm thinking, Gerry, there's so many athletes that want to play music. What about guys that are athletes that are comedians and want to hang with Gerry Dee and do an amateur comedy kind of thing? Like, are there certain, I think Peyton Manning's been a natural. Now he's an older one, retired, but I don't know. Are there certain ones that you're tempted to say, man, I wouldn't mind doing an open mic thing, or they've said, hey, you want to banter with this particular individual?
Yeah. Well, not comedy. Comedy is singing. I've seen comedies. It's embarrassing. It doesn't go well. You could be a great singer in your basement. I'm working on a little project with Ryan O'Reilly right now, who's, if you know, is right into music and playing, and one of his former junior teammates, Kelly Joffrey. And, they're doing some great stuff and singing. But comedy is, I had Terry Ryan. I don't know if you remember Terry Ryan. I mean, I'm sure you do, but
Yeah.
Terry was like an 8th overall pick with the Canadians, wrote a book, and it was crazy. And I said, why don't you come open for me? I'm doing these OHL rinks. And he had these great hockey stories. But, it's different for comedy. Like, no one's dying to try comedy. Like, it's because it's going to fail, right? You're going to fail the first 10 to 50, 100 times. So I don't really see it as much. But they do appreciate humor. I always think the hockey guys are the chirping world is just naturally funny, and they go at each other. So I think it's a good connection. And we had Nathan McKinnon on our show. We had Camilleri on our show. They were great. They had timing, and they're funny people. So like any sport, a lot of funny people, as Nick and and but I don't think any of them are itching to try comedy because it would not go well. It just would take a while.
I still remember yesterday Wayne Gretzky hosting Saturday Night Live, and we know what Saturday Night Live is today and how it moves the whole country, the whole North America every Saturday night. But that took some big cojones by Wayne to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen Wayne in situations like Wayne likes comedy. Wayne has been at events I've been at. He understands, and this as well. He likes to laugh, and whether he could deliver the laughs, I don't know. But he's funny in his way. And again, it's I've been lucky to meet a lot of I mean, I look up to all you hockey guys and what you did, Nick, and what you're Gord too. Like, everything you guys have done is a business I wanted to do so badly and loved and miss. And so I'm more envious of all of them and what they did and you did, and playing in front of 20,000 people. And I've got to know Healy quite a bit over the years. He played with my brother in college, and I remember Healy saying, when the applause ends, right? It's so true. It's you man, it must be amazing to play in front of that. And when that's over, it's like, oh my God. So there's no age limit on comedy, which is good. I can keep doing this. Unfortunately, in sports, you age yourself out eventually.
I feel bad that you saw me throw my tennis racket at the cricket club. I always feel bad about that.
I used to. Oh man, I grew up playing tennis first. I was playing in all the OTA tournaments, and we played everything as kids. I'm sure you guys were the same. There's no single sport. And I used to play those OTA tournaments, and I would throw my racket. So I thought nothing of it. I've learned now kids have two ways of expressing themselves, either anger or sadness. So they're either crying at the end of something or angry. So I think you want one of them, or otherwise there's just no emotion. So no, you're a big curler too. You're up there. You do everything.
Yeah. No, it's
he's like the king of Kensington at the cricket club.
Yeah.
Hey, Gordo, what a guy. Hey, I got to ask you before we let you go, just your thoughts across the country from Vancouver, maybe the situation on who you think might get traded all the way to Montreal or Ottawa. What stands out from you when it comes to the NHL in our country?
I think, we say this, I grew up a Leaf fan, still a Leaf fan. And I think, there's certainly the pieces there more, the defensive side, the goaltending has just, they're top of the league. They're up there right now. And so I think there's some hope there. I like what Ottawa has. I love the Tkachuk and Batherson world of what they're doing. And they've got some great opportunity. I think, Vancouver's got maybe a couple situations there where maybe someone will get traded. I don't know what's going to happen with, is it TJ Miller? Is it, he's kind of, there's some, rumblings there. So Winnipeg started strong. I never wanted to start strong like that. I think it's a kiss of death starting out that strong. Montreal, I think they're a couple years away still from really competing with the youth, and but again, they're hanging in there in games. So I think there's a lot of promise for a lot of the teams. The Flames are probably gonna, they've got some guys. I think Kadri is a good playoff guy to pick up, and they're probably in a situation where they might look at unloading. And of course, Edmonton's, I think it's, if I were to predict an Edmonton-Toronto final, which would be my guess. It would be exciting, but I think, Edmonton, Toronto are certainly in a good position.
Got to ask you about your tour. Is it funny you should say tour? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I start touring. I kind of last year I focused more on Ontario, and now I'm focusing on the other provinces. So I think I head out this month, Winnipeg, Regina this month, then I get to London and Halifax, Moncton, Saskatoon, Montreal, pretty much everywhere for the rest of the year. And then I enjoy that. I haven't done a lot of those cities in a while, so getting back on the road is, other than the travel, is a lot of fun.
Now, Family Feud, are you going to continue that?
Yeah,
or
Family Feud Canada's back. Well, officially, I haven't heard if it's back. I think it's back.
I want to take on TSN and Family Feud.
I said, like, why don't we do Sportsnet versus TSN? It's a ratings juggernaut. Getting all of you against all of them would be great.
Oh, yes. Some of those guys, how they're doing, they're stuck for an answer.
It'd be just the chirps would be so great. I'm always pushing for. I was close to getting a Habs Leafs. Current Habs, current Leafs. But as you know, that's always tough to get with their schedules and when we film. So we're always working on sort of cameos like that. And you never know, you may see that down the road for sure. So it's a lot of fun to do that show. The families are, they're amazing and they love it. And we have a great group that casts them. So I look forward to it. And, it's a ton of fun.
Well, we really appreciate you stopping by on the show, man. Great stuff.
Thanks.
Good luck with everything, and we'll stay in touch. We'll have you on again real soon here, Jer. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Love the show. Thanks, guys. Great to see you both.
That is Gerry Dee, one of our country's best.
Yeah.
It makes us laugh.
And, comedy shows are like, they're getting big crowds now. Like and I assume he will too, because he's really funny. It's fun to see in person.
Ask me what the key to good comedy is.
Okay, what's the key?
Timing.
Good time. Okay. Okay, ask me the oldest joke in the world. That one.
Come on. That was pretty good.
I thought it was pretty good, yeah.
Oh, come on. Why'd the chicken cross the road? What else you going to throw at me? Jeez. Bring Gerry back.
He's going to Winnipeg in January. Bring the parka, baby. That's going to be cold. Game time?
Game time, baby.
All right, it's game time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. So like I mentioned to you guys earlier, and we were talking about a little bit, the Montreal Canadiens and the Vancouver Canucks tonight. Pretty surprising that the Montreal Canadiens are only slight underdogs in that game, plus 110 on the money line. Really interesting one for me, just in terms of where both teams are at. Seems like they're heading in different directions. Excellent game later on tonight. You can watch it on Sportsnet Plus. Florida Panthers in Colorado to take on the Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche are slight favorites, minus 125 on the money line, and the Florida Panthers are plus 105. It's a great matchup, potential Stanley Cup final matchup. The Washington Capitals and Buffalo Sabres, not as exciting of a game, but that game is on at 7 o'clock on Sportsnet Plus as well. The Buffalo Sabres are plus 125 in that game as underdogs. In the last game tonight, only 4 on the schedule. The New Jersey Devils are in Seattle to take on the Kraken. Jersey sliding a little bit here, lost 4 in a row, and they are minus 245 favorites on the money line. So pretty big favorites in Seattle tonight, looking to get off the schneid on a 4-game losing streak. And that was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, a few NHL news and notes, including the concern now with the Ottawa Senators and their goaltending situation. The New York Rangers are getting scoring help. Unfortunately, it's not for them, JT Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty more still to get into. My beef with that World Junior tournament.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like I created it.
No,
the tournament
no.
as a whole, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With still more to dig in with Gord Stellick, Sam McKee. When we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Nick Kypreos, Sammy McKee, Gord Stellick. As a reminder, this hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. All right, the New York Rangers claimed Arthur Kaliev from the Los Angeles Kings. Clearly maybe add some depth. I think he's young enough. I don't know what the heck happened there, but he seemed to be this like kind of up and comer, too good for the American Hockey League, ready to score goals in LA. It was never a fit. They held on him forever without him really playing or having a significant role. And now the Rangers claim him with the thought of taking over for Kakko, maybe, who was traded to Seattle.
Like he makes $825 too, so it's not even like I thought at first. Did he make a contract that was a little bit out of whack? Kippy, I've been there. Their thought is they're desperate. Okay, so it's a waiver wire pickup. Take a flyer at it. Can't go wrong with it. He wouldn't have been a guy they targeted. Okay, it's not a guy like, because obviously that he wouldn't be put on waivers like he was. But for the New York Rangers, the way Kakko was playing this year, I guess it doesn't take much to replace him in the lineup. But they got what I want to ask you is, because you're tight with Mark Messier. I mean, when he talks about there's a disconnect between the general manager and the coach.
Yeah.
Like that, like
really hard.
So, because there's always been thoughts about what's going on off the ice, quite often organizations that are struggling. So it was, hey, they beat Chicago. You're still supposed to beat Chicago. Louis Domingue's a fun story. He got to play. Hadn't been playing well in the AHL, by the way. People wonder why he wasn't back up. But man, oh man, like to say there's a disconnect, I guess, between Chris Drury and Peter Laviolette.
Yeah. Can you find that quote, Mark Messier's quote on
Gordo basically summed it up.
He went on ESPN and he really said that, and I think he summed it up so well, just in terms of people that.
Here it is. I mean, this is a paraphrase of what he said. But he said, right now the core is fractured. There's a disconnect between management and coaching staff. There's a lack of trust and loyalty now. Mark Messier saying that about the Rangers, that carries a lot of weight. Huge. Yeah.
Absolutely huge. And I think there's such a fine line, Gord, and you tell me how you feel, but in terms of, hey, be a pro and play, right? Play through it or play whatever you want. But to Mark's point, if it's so hard to win, especially now that you've got 32 teams all taking a crack at it, starting of October. But if there is a disconnect, if there is a lost trust, what are the odds of success?
So now, first of all, is his nose out of joint that he didn't get a job there years ago? Like a bigger job?
I think there was opportunities for him to come in, and I believe that it never opened up.
Okay. So, and I'm not saying that's his motivation. I just didn't know if, that he felt spurned at whatever particular point. But, hey, when he talks, it's like E.F. Hutton. People listen. And that picture is the picture, him holding the Stanley Cup. I know you think it's you holding the Stanley Cup. That's the second picture. The first picture is him holding the Stanley Cup and being arguably as great a leader as there's been, in a professional sports thing. So it's one thing, the players, they got off to a great start this year. And you got to suck it up, regardless what's going on. But when he talks about something between the general manager and coach, that's serious. And it happens. And it makes it big time dysfunctional. And players aren't dumb. And they read about that. Now, again, it's a bit of a cop-out to say that's why we're the President's Trophy team from last year and we're struggling right now. But when you don't have they're like, all for one for all. You don't trust what management's doing. Whatever, you're suspicious, all that stuff. That's wasted energy. That's where you want to focus everything on a common goal. That's what the great organizations do. And you were part of it, and he was part of it.
Yeah, that's pretty ugly.
Listen, our 94 team, we had many opportunities to derail the thing, but he was the one bridge that kept it going, especially with Keenan and his ways and sometimes his the things that he could say and how it could further, have a negative effect on a guy like Brian Leach or Mike Richter or, down the roster. And yet he found a way to just bridge it, just get it to a place where it doesn't make Brian Leach completely fall off a cliff, his game anyways, right? And it doesn't appear like there's anybody right now in that dressing room as long as Chris Kreider's been there. Fox won a Norris. And yet they don't have what appears to me is the ability to kind of take control of that dressing room within the confines of that room and and what goes on the ice. There just doesn't seem to be anybody that can find a way to overcome this.
Well, you traded your captain.
Zibanejad right now is one of their highest paid players with a complete no move right now. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he just scored maybe the second even strength goal of the season. It's like, who's in that room going to take charge right now?
Well, you traded your captain too. Like, that's always a sign of something's amiss. We talk about Vancouver trying to get the players to figure out in their dressing room. I mean, here, like, that's like a smoke bomb. You traded your captain. You're the President's Trophy winners. You made it clear all summer long you were trying to move them. And the Barclay Goodrow thing. And, I know they're very tight with the training staff got changed when Chris Drury came on board. And he's entitled to do that. A lot of guys come on board, make a lot of changes off the ice. So a lot was being made of that in New York, that he came on like, big, all guns a-blazing. And he's not the only one that ever would have done that. But it just seems that every button that's being pushed the last 6 weeks, and I mean from the management, from whoever it is, pushing buttons in the front office on top of the inexcusable play by the team at times, has been the wrong button.
Yeah, if they could just play the Blackhawks every night, they'd be in great shape.
Well, they were pushing the right buttons till that game as well, but you're right. You're right. They kind of reverted back.
But just to, circle back on Kaliev that they claimed, he's a second-round pick in 2019. I guess 2019 is quite a while now. I guess it's the year the Raptors won the Cup. But he's got some pedigree.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a chance, worth a try. You stink anyway.
Without a doubt.
Oh,
you stink anyway. I think it's worth a shot. So,
But there's no question that New York Rangers, with their recent fallout, has given life to so many teams, like we mentioned earlier on in the show. Right now, it's Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
That's holding this, and they're 17-17. So
by points percentage, the Sens are still in there.
Yeah.
But by straight up old school points, the Penguins are ahead of them.
The news on Linus Ullmark is not good in Ottawa, where he has not even begun skating, and head coach Travis Green announcing that he is week to week. What's their goalie, Levi?
Well,
Merslainen?
Valley. What did Valley say earlier in the season with Linus Ullmark? What did he say? Dr. Season off?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was looking into it. It's just, this is a concern for him.
Good on this kid that's come up and kind of held the fort a little bit, but they're gonna trade for somebody, do they not?
Well, and when like Ullmark was the best goalie in the league the last 3 weeks before he got hurt. He was the best. He was as good as any goaltender in the league. So that's a tough one. When Travis Green said back spasms, Kippy, I thought that was a positive. I just kind of thought, okay, it's like us, take some Robaxacet or something like that. You're going to be back, but obviously that's not the case. And yeah, depth wise, there's not a lot of teams that have that kind of depth. And you're trying to hope someone is a Kevin Lankinen and can ride it for a month. But right now it's a tough ride. It's a tough ride because everyone's coming at you. Everyone's there. Montreal's there now. Detroit's back in. They're all there. Philadelphia's not going away. They're Columbus is there.
The reason why everybody's in is because right now it's shaping up to be like 85 points to get in. It's not – in the past we've seen 96, 95, 94. Now it's like 500 hockey's now in the mix.
Well,
which is, I don't know, somebody's going to have to take off. Everybody's had good stretches, though. Pittsburgh's had a good stretch. Ottawa's had a good stretch. Columbus, now Montreal. For sure, Montreal now riding a heater here. But I don't know what that does for the trade deadline, but it makes a lot of people kind of hold their water right now.
They've had good stretches, and then when they have it, they can't sustain it. They keep giving it back. It's like a hot potato. Hey, I'm in. Oh, I'm out. Here you go. You're in. And, and then, somebody else is in. And that's what happened last year. I mean, Detroit, they had that game in Montreal. Remember, they were in for X number of minutes, then a few minutes they were out, and that ended their playoff hope. And you're getting that, but with even more teams right now. So if anybody can go on what Nashville did like last year, maybe Nashville can go on again what Nashville did like last year. I don't know. But it's almost like if you want to be cut and dried above because it's so clogged, you're talking about a heater. You got to go on a heater plus.
Yeah. And the Sens' next game is against the Red Wings on Thursday night. It's like that's all of a sudden with them with McClellan behind. They won 4 or 5 in a row here now. They lost brutally to the Leafs in the first game of McClellan. I don't think they've lost since. So they're getting hot too. It's a real mishmash at the bottom of that. All the more reason for the teams at the top of their divisions, for Washington win the with the Metro, the Leafs in the Atlantic, the Panthers in the Atlantic, to try to win that division to get whoever's going to be in that last spot. It's not going to be a great team here. It's a real chance to win the division. So, anyways.
Out west, prior to a loss to the Montreal Canadiens in overtime Saturday night, Colorado's looking like the Colorado that we've been accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, Colorado and Dallas, sort of, because Minnesota and Winnipeg have been the wow teams. And it's funny, Gerry Dee, when he joined us earlier, he's talking comedy, but even talking sports, he just said, yeah, I don't like getting out in front early. And I always remember the Buffalo Sabres were in first place. Remember that around U.S. Thanksgiving? What was it, 3-4 years ago? I still like getting out early. I love banking wins, don't get me wrong, but quite often it's a misrepresentation how things finish at the end. So you kind of have sat back, and I thought Minnesota, what a great win over Carolina, 4-0, without Kaprizov, without Spurgeon. I thought that was a big win on Saturday for them. That was a nice one. But, yeah, they're playing like, Colorado won a Stanley Cup a few years ago. Dallas has been one of those favorites the last couple of years. And then because of Calgary and Vancouver's inability to grab it and go on a bit of a tear, like, no, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it. St. Louis and Utah are right there. So it's really, really clogged up. It doesn't have the volume as the East does, but it's clogged up big time the last 10 days by those teams being in the spot and then relinquishing it the next game.
We crowned a World Junior Championship for the second consecutive time. The Team USA, Sammy, and you just give a big...
Makes me sick.
Makes you sick.
It does.
What about Team USA winning?
Yeah.
Well, it can't make you sick. Come on. They won twice in a row. Congratulations to them.
No.
If you got, Ryan.
This is why Sammy's on the show.
This
This is what we love to hate about Sammy.
I was going to say, geez.
It's really worrisome. They've just been way better than us for multiple years here. Like, Canada got one with Bedard, but I mean, I think it's, 5 of the last 7 matchups they've beaten. They've been better than Canada. They were way better than this tournament. They're producing all these top prospects.
You're the guy that takes your net and goes home. So you're playing ball hockey as a kid, and little Sammy's in Gould, and they all go by.
No, I'd never go net.
Not only that, he takes the net. So you don't have a net to play with now, right? He takes the net and go home. So Canada is not going to win it, so we should have folded. Some of those people stuck with tickets. Wish they could have given their tickets, sold their tickets back for the semifinal and final. But I got to start with a positive about USA, Finland making the final. The games were entertaining yesterday. Latvia was a positive story. Unfortunately, we weren't.
Got to come to the conclusion that there's a lot more to pick from in the U.S. than there is now in our country.
I totally understand it.
All we've done now is focus and build on hockey programs, thanks to having teams in Florida, Texas, California, obviously, with added teams besides LA after all those years. They're playing the game. They love the game. There's more to pick from. The percentages say, Sammy, that it's...
When they get serious,
it's going to be tough.
10 times the population base.
Right?
But
I completely understand numbers and people. I don't like it. I don't like I'm a bleeding heart Canadian. Hockey is supposed to be our thing, and we're falling behind here. We are.
Well, I know. I see. Then we
level,
we quickly pivot there. Now, first of all, the women's hockey, we would love a third country to be up there with Canada, USA. So I'm the Chicken Little thing for me. This thing always gets way blown out of proportion both ways. And the one thing I can say right now, and I think, Sammy, you agree, and Kippy, you agree, is, first of all, anyone in my circle is not bleeping on the Canadian kids, okay? Constructive criticism is fine. Being vilified is absurd. And it's the worst part of social media. That's where, I don't count that. Social media, you cannot be responding reactive to the dregs of society about allegedly vilifying the players or whatever.
At the same time, and this is not a shot at TSN, okay? Because they're a business. They got to run it as a business. But the overhype to get them at that feverish spot it makes it so easy for them to crash down. And that plays into it. And I'm not saying it's their fault. Like I said, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, to sit there and promote these kids and push and push and push. But when there's not the prize at the end of the race, it's a hard fall.
Yeah.
It's a natural hard fall because we kind of set them all up, the teenagers.
Well, we're the only country that has that kind of hype about it. And meanwhile, there's a bunch of good countries in there, but they don't face the same kind of, to your point, about living and dying.
We can't have it both ways. We can't build them up and overhype them like crazy and think that, the Sharks like Sammy out there are going to walk, like Pac-Man, eat them up, walk.
I never mentioned one person, one player on any social media. I never did that. It's more of a program thing for me in terms of top to bottom, in terms of just the way they pick the teams, in terms of what we have coming.
That needs fixing.
It needs fixing.
That needs fixing.
That's constructive criticism.
And that's you can go through all my social media. I never crapped on Cal, and I never crapped on anybody. There's all these kids that are getting crapped on.
Too many personal agendas still at Hockey Canada.
I completely agree.
And it's like, who gets picked and who looks good picking who and who wants to stick it to who when they don't pick certain players.
And who has influence.
So...
Yeah, I mean, they left them. It was interesting because, again, we could break it down way more about how you didn't pick your most talented team, but then you argue if you pick your most talented team scoring-wise, then when you lose, you said, well, you didn't pick a team, whatever. So when you lose, you're ripe for any kind of criticism. That last period we saw when they scored 2 goals to tie Czechia, that's the team. That's the team we didn't see enough of. They beat Finland 4-0, but that one period was what they could be, and for whatever reasons,
they took stupid penalties, and you don't need to run people into the wall. You don't need a big check that if you miss, you end up clipping a guy with your knee. You don't need that. You need to contain. These are European officials too.
I mean, you could look at the coach for not putting the best young forward on the top line until the third period of the last game of the tournament too. Could have talked about that.
Well,
but
there's critique everywhere around.
Yeah,
of course, but
I'm not going to the summit.
I'll be at the summit. I'll be
You'll
leading.
Be at the
I'll be
summit.
leading
Okay.
the summit.
You'll be the whole summit.
I've said this on Friday. I'll say it to you guys here. We're heading into now. Marty Walsh has made it so that best on best hockey matters again. We're starting in with the Four Nations face-off into the Olympics, into whatever's coming after that. We need these kids right now to start to develop because McDavid's not going to be around forever. McKinnon's not going to be around forever. We need the next ones to start filling out the rest of the roster. And America's at that level. Looks a lot better, and that's concerning to me.
So we're going to be around forever.
We're going to be around forever, and our kids are going to develop, and they're going to be fine. Okay. And it is the more the merrier. There's more countries that are playing at a higher level than we had it to ourselves, say, 30 years ago, and we don't. And that's not all a bad thing. And Kippy, your point is, there's it's become a extreme great event over Christmas, and it's got hyped to a level that you can say is absurd, or you could say is unfair as far as the expectation on the young individuals. But, being eliminated for the first time ever twice, first time in 30 years anyway, whatever, in the quarterfinals is a tough pill.
Gord, great job holding
buddy.
the fort for Justin today. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to get out on time this time. I'm not going to keep
How about the
talking.
guy that lost his phone during the game in the KHL?
Amazing. So I saw what happened. Apparently it was on the shelf by his elbow pad. He pulled off the elbow pad and it fell into the back of his pants.
I did have half an energy bar fall out of my pants during the game.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure it was an energy bar?
I tucked it in.
Was
It was an
Henry
energy
from
bar.
Caddyshack?
Was it unwrapped?
No, it was not an O. Henry, Gord.
Okay.
Our thanks to Gerry Dee for joining us, and of course, Gord Stellick. Have a great night, everybody. We're back tomorrow on The Real Kyper and Bourne Show.